What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video today. In today's video we are going to be installing a rear differential cover on the Lightning. You can pick up these rear differential covers and they are really good for the increased stability in the rear end, as well as they just look really nice. It's a really nice piece. If you guys haven't looked at your rear end cover, it is really thin, and this thing is just really thick and beefy. And it also adds the convenience of a fill and drain plug right on the cover. Stock covers don't come with that, of course, just like the transmission, that doesn't come with the drain plug. But this is a really nice upgrade to do, because not only does it add a little bit of stability to your rear end, you get the fill and drain plug, and it just looks really nice. It's a really nice piece. It's a lot nicer and thicker. So we're gonna be doing that today. I'm gonna go over everything you need. Basically, it comes with full instructions. This gasket, which we normally toss because I normally like to use RTV. Those gaskets always leak, so we're gonna use RTV. Comes with all new mounting hardware, and you can opt for the ARP stud kit as well. This is for the main bearings. It's studs that go in instead of the bolts that are there, and that adds a little bit of beefiness as well. So we're gonna go over everything you need. This is all the stuff you're gonna need. Basically, you need 3 quarts of this 75-140 fluid of your choice. I always go with Royal Purple. I've done this once before. When I first bought the truck, I changed out the fluid, and Royal Purple's always worked for me. You're gonna need 1 bottle of Motorcraft additive friction modifier. RTV, if that's the route you want to go. You can try the gasket if you want. I've tried it before and always had a leak, so RTV is what we're gonna go with. Fluid pumps, you don't really need it, but it does make life a lot easier because it's hard to get the bottle up in there and pour. So fluid pump makes life a lot easier. It's $4 at Harbor Freight, so why not? May as well grab that, make life easy. Drain pan for your fluid. Here's the tools you're gonna need: flathead screwdriver, 3/4 inch ratchet, 3/8 ratchet, some extensions. You'll need a 19mm socket, 13mm. This is a 3/8 Allen socket, 1/4 inch Allen socket, and 3/16 Allen socket. You'll also need an inch-pound torque wrench, super important. Also a foot-pound torque wrench. That should be everything you need. And this is actually not that bad. It's pretty easy install, but it will make life a lot easier later with the drain and fill plug if you ever want to swap your fluid out for whatever reason. Maybe keep it fresh. And like I said, it's just a nice beefy piece, good little upgrade to do, and it's actually fairly cheap. And let's get to this install. We're going to pull the truck out a little bit so we have room to get behind it, and we'll go from there. Get you guys a little cold start so we can pull the truck out. Alright, so first thing you're going to want to do is, whether or not you jack up the truck is completely up to you. If you want to chalk your front tires and jack the rear end up a little bit, you can. But I can fit under oath here just fine. Crack all your bolts loose. If you want, you can take them out, that's fine. Just pop the bottom of your cover loose, that way your fluid will come out, and let it drain. It's going to be really nasty and it's going to smell, so prepare yourself for that. Go get yourself some nose plugs if you need it. But we're gonna go ahead and do that. We'll be right back. All right, as you can see, we got our cover off. We're just gonna let the fluid drain for a little bit while we scrape all this gasket material off around the edges. Like I said, I RTV'd it, so it's all stuck there. So we're gonna have to use a little scraper and go to town on that. And then we'll probably clean it up with maybe a little Scotch-Brite or something, just to kind of clean that surface. But gear cover's off, or the rear differential cover is off. and scrape the gasket. Like I said, clean that all up. But I figured I'd show you the difference between the rear cover and the TA cover. So here's the TA cover. You can see, nice thick flange. I mean, this thing is super nice and thick and sturdy. This is your stock cover. It is like paper thin, as you can see. And there's nothing to this thing. It's just a piece of steel stamped sheet metal. It's all that is. And it's super, super thin. If you guys can't even see or the camera's doing it any justice, but super thin, nice and thick. This is a really nice upgrade just for the sturdiness alone. I mean, that thing is definitely a lot more sturdy and just a nicer piece. And it's gonna look really nice in the back of the truck. So anyways, I just figured I'd show you guys the difference side to side. You can see no drain or fill plugs on this thing, just a solid piece. This has got the drain and fill plugs. It's got the bearing support thing right here. These basically lightly press against the bearing and just kind of keep it supported, as well as just the overall sturdiness of the piece. So definitely a lot nicer and a nice little upgrade to do. So we're gonna get to town on scraping that gasket. We'll come back to you when it's all cleaned up and move on to the next step. So as you can see, we got this gasket surface nice and clean. All the RTV is off of there. Looks really good. There's 10 different ways to skin a cat, so how you do that is up to you. We used a Dremel with this brass wire wheel and just took it right off of there. It was super easy that way, but if you don't have a Dremel, you can just use a scraper, some sandpaper, however you want to do it. Just get that surface nice and clean. And when you do that, you're going to want to cover the insides of your rear end. We use some Winn-Dixie bags, as you can see there, because you really don't want all that debris to go in there. It's not going to stop all of it from going in, but it should stop the majority of it. You definitely want to keep everything nice and clean. But since we're done with that, we can pull these out. And we are going to install our ARP studs into the bearing caps. Pretty easy. It's not too bad. If you got the ARP stud kit, basically what you're going to want to do is use your 19mm and work on one bearing cap at a time. Just do this side first. You want to break both of them loose. Take one of the bolts all the way out. Take your stud. Make sure the Allen set is out and thread that in. And then we'll torque it down. You want to torque it to 120 inch-pounds or 10 foot-pounds of torque. And basically you'll take, like I said, break both of them loose, take one out, put the stud in, torque it down 120 inch-pounds, and then we'll put the washer and the nut on hand tight, move on to the next one, and so on until those are done. And then we'll torque down the nuts on the studs. So we're gonna go ahead and break both of these loose, take one out, and then we'll torque down one of the studs for you. Okay, so we broke both of these loose. You may need a cheater bar. We use the end of our jack handle and basically put that over the back end of your ratchet, and you can use it as a cheater bar. It was on there really tight and it took quite a bit to break these loose, but both are broken loose. So you just want to take one out. We'll start with the top one there. Take that out. There it is. We will take one of our studs. Like I said, you want the hex to face you. It's this end here. And then thread that in. So thread that in by hand as far as we can get it. And then we're going to take our 3/16 Allen socket. That should fit right in the end there, you can see. Tighten it up. Take our torque wrench, 120 inch-pounds or 10 foot-pounds is what you're looking for. So we got our inch-pound torque wrench set for 120. You go until it clicks. You can see the click. That's it. That's torqued down. So now we'll take our washer, put that on there, take one of our nuts, thread that on the end there, and just thread that down finger tight. once you got that finger tight, you can move on to the next one. Basically going to repeat that process for all 4 of them. And when we're done doing all of that, we will come back and torque these down. So I'm going to go ahead and get all that done, and we'll come back when we're ready. Okay, so now that we got the studs all torqued to 120 inch-pounds and the nuts on their finger tight, we're going to torque our nuts now. Now the torque for the nuts is 85 to 90 foot-pounds. So I went to 87. You get your foot-pounds torque wrench in the 19mm socket and just torque it to 87 foot-pounds like I said. You can do anywhere 85 to 90, but I figured shoot for the middle. So go ahead and do that. This is the same deal. You just torque it until it clicks. 85 to 90 is pretty tight, so don't be afraid of it. We're torqued there. To the bottom one. Click there and click there. Move on to the second side. That one's done. And now we're torqued. We're gonna take a little bit of leftover differential fluid that I have from last time. It might be a good idea to buy 1 extra bottle, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that bottle and just kind of flush the rear end out so we get any debris, all the old stuff out of there, so it's nice and clean. Probably not 100% needed to do, but it's something I like to do just in case we got any debris while we were cleaning things up in there. Just kind of flush it out real good with some extra fluid. And then we're going to take some acetone, wipe all the oil off of this surface so we get a nice bond with the RTV. And then we can go ahead and get to work installing the cover. Okay, so everything's torqued. We wiped down that whole surface with some lacquer thinner. Basically, you want to wipe the whole surface down with lacquer thinner really good. Take your time, get all the grease and film off of that surface so it's nice, clean, and dry. And then we did the same thing on this. This should be pretty clean already, but you want to make sure there's no film from the manufacturing process or anything like that. So wipe down both surfaces with some lacquer thinner. It's nice and clean, so you can get a really good bond with your RTV. So that's what we're doing next. And like I said, you don't have to do RTV. You can use lube locker gaskets or good gaskets. You can use the gasket it comes with if you want, but I don't like taking the chance and having a leak. Especially because you'll see when you guys look at your surface on the actual diff itself, there's all kinds of grooves and slots in it, and that's why they're notorious for leaking. I feel like RTV will fill all the imperfections the best. I guess you could put RTV, like a layer on your gasket if you wanted to, but I'm just going to delete the gasket altogether and use a nice thick bead of RTV. It's worked fine for me in the past, no leaks, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to put a nice bead on the cover, get underneath there, align it the best we can with 2 bolts, and try not to make an absolute mess. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it shouldn't be too bad. So okay, now something very important I forgot to mention. Before you actually go to put the cover on, make sure you back these out as much as you can without taking them out all the way. You want to back them out quite a bit. I basically loosen up the lock nuts and back this out as far as you can without it coming unthreaded. So back those way out. That way you don't bump into the bearing covers while you put this on. So this is now on. All of these are just finger tight until the material, you can see the RTV is starting to squeeze out from around the flange. So you just finger tight everything. Let that sit and skin over. It says 1 hour, and then we can torque those to spec, and then we'll torque this to spec, and we are pretty much done, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and set a timer, let this cure for an hour, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we let the silicone cure for 1 hour. Well, not cure, but let it sit for 1 hour to kind of firm up some. And basically all these bolts are just finger tight at the moment. But now we're gonna torque them. And basically you wanna torque them to 25 foot-pounds. And you can just start in the center, maybe work your way out to the edges, kind of go over it again. But 25 foot-pounds is what you're torquing these outside bolts to. We're gonna torque all this down, and then I'll come back to you when we're ready to do these load bolts. Okay, all the outside bolts are now torqued. Like I said, 25 foot-pounds is what you want. The ones you can't get to, you can just use the L-shaped Allen key and just do it pretty tight. Just kind of maybe feel what it takes to spin one of the other ones and match it. It's not real critical because all the other ones are torqued well. So now what we're going to do is these load bolts right here. Basically that's going to push the support onto the bearing covers. So what you're going to want to do is just push them in hand tight until you can feel them touch. See, right there it's touched. Do the same thing with this one. Screw it in hand tight until you feel it touch. Now that's touching as well. And we're going to torque these to 60 inch-pounds or 5 foot-pounds. That's it. It doesn't take much, and it's not going to be very tight. You'll see what 60 inch-pounds looks like. It's not much. That's it. You do not want to over torque them. You do not want to go any tighter, or you can cause damage to your bearings. So 60 inch-pounds or 5 foot-pounds. That's it. Torque those down. Those are torqued, and that is it. Now what we're going to do is these jam nuts, we're going to torque these down as well. But first we have to address an issue that these seem to have. And basically differential fluid will seep out of these and leak just a little bit, not a lot, but you'll have some seepage. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of black RTV, just put some dots all the way around the threaded rod there. That way when we put our jam nuts on, it'll squish down and prevent any seepage. Torque these to 20 foot-pounds, which isn't much, just to keep the studs from backing out. That's all it is. Not a big deal. That's it. Kind of clean up this mess we made with the RTV as best we can. Now that's all done, torqued, ready to go. All you gotta do is fill her up with fluid. Alright, so it's been 24 hours. We let the silicone fully cure. I wanted to give it all the time it needed so we don't have any problems later. And the only thing left to do is add our fluid. So we got our fluid pump. As you can see, you want to, on this side of the diff, there is your stock overflow plug. Pull that, clean the plug real good. And all we're gonna do now is fill it until it starts leaking out of that side plug over there. That's when you know you're full. You do not fill it until it leaks out of here. This is a fill plug only, and you will be way over full if you filled it to up to here. You still use the stock fill plug on this side of the diff. Fill it until it starts to come out of there, and you're good to go. And I figured I'd throw this in there too. These are the instructions straight from TA. I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of filling the fluid to their fill plug, and it specifically says not to do that. It says to fill the rear end with gear oil using the provided fill hole on the girdle, and to fill it until oil runs out of the factory fill location on the side of your housing. So do not fill it up until it runs out of the fill hole on the girdle. You still use the factory location on the housing and fill it until it runs out of that. And it should take about 3 quarts. I've seen some people post on the forums saying that it took 5 quarts and they filled it until it overflowed out of the filling on the cover. You're not supposed to do that. So, like I said, fill it until it pours out of the factory location on the side of the housing, and that's when you know you're full. The fill plug on the girdle itself is just that. It is just so you can easily fill it. That is not where you fill it up to. That is way too much fluid for your rear end. That would not allow enough expansion when it gets hot. You don't want to do that. So we're going to pump our fluid in. We're going to start with pumping 1 quart of the oil. Then we're going to add our friction modifier, and then finish pumping oil until it starts leaking out of that side plug. Then we're going to put the plug in and go take it for a drive. So let's get to pumping. These fluid pumps are a lifesaver, like I said. It makes life a lot easier. Instead of trying to pour it in, just pump it right in there. So as you can see, we took it for a little drive. Everything seemed pretty good. Didn't hear any clumps, grinds, or any noises in the rear end, so I think we're going to be good to go. Now we're just going to drive it to and from work for a little while, put some miles on it, and then of course we'll crawl under there and check for any leaks or seepage or anything like that. But I think we did a pretty solid job, so I don't really see us having any problems with anything. Yeah, super happy with it. It looks like a really nice solid piece and nice little upgrade to do. So that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. Make sure you don't forget to drop a thumbs up on the video. YouTube is starting to favor likes, so make sure you drop a like on the video and help us out on YouTube and the algorithm and all that stuff. Get the channel out there and get it noticed. But if you're new to the channel, subscribe. A lot of Lightning content to come, a lot more upgrades, and we're gonna start doing some POV drives and racing and some more action type content as well. We'll see you on the next video, guys.